legislature to move recovery forward?
There isn't an enormous amount that Utah can do to, separate ourselves from the national economy. We're going to be affected by it. Again, I'm going to go back to the Hunting Guides Act that Mr. Vickers sponsored. This is the kind of thing that we can look throughout the Utah Code. I'm sure there are people in this room who know of things along this line that we can look at, where we can make the state step back and let the people actually invest their entrepreneurial time and spirit in creating a new economy. Jobs don't come from the top down. Government doesn't create jobs. People create jobs. And this is an example. We hear a lot of talk about the nanny state. We hear talk about the government getting in the way of business. This sort of thing, to me, is the perfect representation of when the government is in the way of entrepreneurship, is in the way of the economy, is in the way of individual initiative. And we need to go through the Utah Code from top to bottom and get the government out of the way of private enterprise. That's our solution to fixing the economy in Utah, 100%.
Thanks. Right off the top, higher education. Okay, higher education, and I don't mean just SU and University of Utah. I mean any type of post-high school graduate certification program, whether it be an associate degree, some kind of mechanical, electrical certification, all the way up through postgraduate and doctorate programs. Higher ed, that type of education, we've shown. We did a white paper last year with the help of Doug Larson at SU, 11 policy. Committee for Public Policy and Politics. He did a white paper for him. He showed that we drilled down how much income tax, additional income tax, one class, one year that SUU brought back into the economy of the state of Utah was $600,000. That's just 1 year. So it shows that to get those kids educated, that's an economic development. Some things that are going on in the states. Just in some recent business rankings, Utah's #1 in quality of life, #2 in best education climate, #3 in best business climate, Forbes ranked as #1 for business and careers. We have GOED, Governor's Office of Economic Development, is helping bring people into our state. We've had a lot of success with Procter & Gamble, and American Express, and Dolby. There's a new manufacturing plant going in Hurricane. The announcement will be made soon. 200 jobs there. USTAR, which is tied to a research institution. They're bringing high-tech jobs to different areas, working with wind, power, solar. Our research institutions, you don't know how many millions of dollars our research institutions bring in. And whether you like it or not, Utah going to the Pac-12 is more than about athletics, because the Pac-12 is going to increase our level of money coming in for research at the University of Utah. Keeping a tax structure that is competitive. And when you rank Utah, we come in the top 5 to top 15 in most business categories for, from tax standpoint perspective.
I don't really have anything further to add to that this time.
Okay. Let's talk about taxes. Evan, this question will go to you first. This is kind of a 3-part question. I was asked by a listener on the radio this afternoon about posing the question of a viable alternative to property tax. And along those same lines, I want to ask both of you to consider, can the tax rate be so high that it is unacceptable? And if so, I would like each of you to name a tax rate that was so high that citizens would be under no moral obligation whatsoever to pay it.
We got 3 or 2.
We got 2 also.
Okay.
The third part of that would be, if you can't name such a rate,
Okay.
well, what does that mean?
Viable alternative to property tax, the way we're set up here, you have sales tax, you have income tax, and property tax. There are some discussions, actually we've had some discussions in the Interim Revenue Taxation Committee about equalizing property tax versus sales tax with the school districts. It's a complicated, it's very controversial. The proposal is on the table is to shift some property tax to sales tax, putting sales tax back on food, lowering property tax equivalent amount, trying to equalize it from I'm not a big fan of that because it seems like we always come up losing in the rural area of the state. But as an alternative, I'm sorry, I don't really have a good alternative. I would certainly want to look at reform and property tax and try to make it more equitable. But those are easy things to say. That's an easy thing for a politician to say. That's political speak for, I really want to do something, I just don't know what to do. Can you have a tax too high? Yeah, you can. Income tax is a very regressive tax. I don't say never. I'll be honest with you, I don't. But I would never vote for an income tax because it's so regressive. We've proven that. If you raise the income tax, you see jobs go out of the state. All you got to do is look at New Jersey and California. Is it so high? Yeah. Your growth, on a national level, if you get above 25% of your GDP in taxes, you just can't fund that. And so, but the last question is, you're at the point where it becomes so, to the point that you're not morally obligated to pay. Well, unfortunately, if the law says we have to pay it, I'm going to have to pay it. I haven't figured out a way to keep paying business taxes. Anyway, I apologize, I don't have a better answer for that, but that's the best I can do.
Again, I have to agree with that on the whole. I think there are some things that can be done. We can look at some ways of shifting some of the fees for actual services rendered so that they reflect the amount of property a person owns in a different way and their actual use of those services. But I don't know whether that's actually reforming anything or just sort of shifting the formula around a little bit. As for what kind of a tax rate is too high, I think that's the more interesting part of this question. And my response to that has always been, well, God only asks for 10%. Why does the government want 35? It just doesn't seem right to me. So I think the most important point as far as property taxes, sales taxes, any of these taxes are concerned, is that we really need to go back to what all of the state codes are, what are the functions that the state is doing, and determine which ones are the things we actually want the government to do, and which are the things we want the government to walk away from and let us take care of ourselves. Because that's what's going to change our tax rate. Not just playing with numbers and shifting it from you over to you and over to you. That's just redistribution. That isn't really what we want to do. What we want to do is figure out what's the actual function of government that we want. And then we can really talk about what tax rates need to be and how to assess them.
And you have a minute if you'd like. Okay. Let's see, I've lost track. Who goes to next?
He had a chance to respond, so I guess I'd start with me.
Okay, Barry. Let's talk about the issue of campaign financing. Explain your approach and what limits, if any, you would place on campaign donations.
There's a lot of talk about campaign finance reform throughout the state, throughout the nation. Obviously, campaign money has been a huge issue in the governor's race. It's just an enormous, enormous thing. As a libertarian, I understand free speech. I understand that it is important for people to be able to do what they want to with their money. But as an individual, I know that when people give me large sums of money, I am going to feel some sort of obligation to them in exchange for that. And that's why I've not called for any legal limitations on campaign donations. But I have made the decision that I am not going to accept any money from any PACs, any special interests, any lobbyists at all. None. I will accept money from constituents who live within the district. I might even accept a small amount from a friend, acquaintance, whatever, who might be outside, but it would be a personal thing. Even those, I would accept no more than $50 from any household. That's my stand. I'm not going to be obligated to anyone. I will represent the people of the district. I'm not going to represent people outside the district. And the only way I know to do that is to take a personal stand. Because following the law isn't really what's ethical. What's ethical is doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So that's where I stand.
The unfortunate thing about campaigns, it costs money, and you have to come up with that money somehow. And if you get to the point that you can only raise the money yourselves, then obviously that puts a lot of people at disadvantage, me included. Wouldn't be able to run for election in a lot of cases. You know, and as I looked at donations, campaign donations, they kind of fall into three categories. One is it's a sign of support for the individual, and I make a lot of campaign donations. Number two is you have common beliefs. And three, you want something. Okay? Now, in my experience, at least in the legislature, the people that donate to my campaign, you know, I've taken money from PACs, I've taken money from various organizations, smaller donations. The largest donation I've ever had is about $500. But if you look at those PACs represent people, and they represent professions. I belong to a PAC. I belong to a pharmacy PAC. You know, we have individuals in my profession that we have laws that come up. Education PACs. There's builders. I actually belong to that too, by the way. You know, there's various groups, but those people represent interests of you in the audience, many of you in the audience. So if you don't have a say, and now does that mean that when they give me or anyone else in the legislature a donation, are you beholden to them? Well, no, I'm not. You know, should there be caps? Yeah, I think there should be caps. I've got colleagues that are in Salt Lake County that are running campaigns this year that are costing $50,000. Why would you spend $50,000 for a $6,000 seat? I haven't figured that out, but there's should there be caps? Yeah, there should. You know, my thoughts, I talked to Dennis Stoll about Senator Stoll. We had conversations last week with visiting about it, you know, kind of, what do you think? You know, we're kind of banning this around. We feel like that $5,000 is the maximum you should be able to give to a legislative office. On a statewide race, maybe $15,000. But, you know, I think that would level the playing field out. Unfortunately, it costs money to get your message out, so you've got to have some contribution.
Well, the only contributions I've had are a couple of very small individual ones and a $400 that I received from the State Libertarian Party as part of the dispersal of the funds that are collected on your income tax forms, where you can optionally check off and give a small amount of money there. The rest of it's been done out of my own pocket. I don't have to take money from any of these outside sources. I just didn't have to. You know, when Mr. Vickers says that you have to take money, I'm living proof that you don't have to take it. He also mentioned he'd never taken more than $500. According to his August 26th report, he received $1,000 from the Utah Association of Realtors Political Action Fund. So, in fact, you have taken more than $500 from an individual account. I'm just telling you, you don't have to take it. You don't have to elect representatives who take money from everybody that throws money out.
Just a second.